Hello and welcome to In Conversation, the show where we keep you and ourselves within the conversation. Of course, it begins from internally, which is the great University of Johannesburg, to the broader society because we are intertwined. And today we are on a UJ Law Clinic, ex-UJ journalism students joining me for a series debate. Trust me, it's one not to miss, as we are going to be talking more about the Miss SA 2024 beauty pageant, which for me is one of the most controversial ones. And without further ado, I would like my panelists to introduce themselves, starting from my right. Luyolo.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Luyolo Lemakoyekwa. I am a final year student of journalism and politics, researcher and blogger.
Oh, awesome. And Rowan?
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lindo Rowan Chawalala. I'm a final year LLB student. I'm a 3 years senior law library assistant. And I'm also here representing the law clinic for today's debate.
Though it's been moving smoothly, I felt like I was also going to introduce myself. I'm also a second year in something. But yeah, Tabo?
Greetings, everyone. I am MX Tabo Gabriel Matule. I am the inaugural champion of public interest law moot in Africa. I am also a former Mr. Kimberley team title holder. I am also an inaugural finalist for MXUJ. Thank you.
Awesome. And Nyasha?
Good day. My name is Nyasha Zashe Simon Makoni. I am a final year UJ student who is majoring in journalism and in psychology.
Awesome. So that's what it means to you as a viewer, that we have people that are informed and they are also, like you, concerned about what is happening inside the country. We're just applying the knowledge that they are having. And as I said in my introduction, it is quite a controversial topic that we have today. And for me, it's one of the most controversial ever since we had this beauty pageant. Guys, I think the beginning spot should be, for me, we're talking about Miss South Africa. What makes a South African? What is a South African? Black shoe, change your foot. I'll start from my left at this time. Yasha, want to start there?
Thank you very much, Bongani. Well, for me, a South African is not only a person who was born in South Africa, but is a person who resembles the values of South Africa. Yeah. I feel that we have many individuals who are not of blood in terms of South Africa, but then they have represented us, elsewhere. Putting South Africa on the map, people like Tendai Mtawarira, individuals who have shown that.
Is that beast?
That is beast.
Okay,
that is
yeah.
beast. People who have shown that you don't necessarily have to be of blood. Okay. However, you just have to embrace, the values that are within that country.
Awesome. MX?
Is the question, what is a perfect Miss South Africa?
In your understanding, let's start it broadly, because there's a title called South Africa. What is a South African in your view, a South African?
What is a South African?
Yeah.
I think there is, in fact, a very important conversation that we need to have as a country.
Yeah.
Because if you ask me, what has happened in the past 2 weeks has shown us how divided we are in defining who we are actually as South Africans. Is it about citizenship? Is it about identity? Is it about culture? Is it about heritage? Is it about language? Is it about ancestral descent?
Yeah.
It's very interesting. So
it remains
I think,
a question.
Yeah, we really need to answer that question as South Africans.
Okay, I like your answer. Your answer gives more questions more than it answers, but it clears the air that there's a lot to be considered. It's not just me saying I was born in South Africa, therefore I'm South African. It's beyond just that. But Rowan, you have the perspective.
Yes, of course. So in terms of the legal definition of what a South African citizen is, you understand? If we look at it, what is a South African? I'm basing it on citizenship, basically, whereby our Citizenship Amendment Act, which came into force in 2013, amended in 2010, came out in 2010, which basically stated that there's 3 ways of acquiring citizenship, which is by birth, by descent, and by naturalization. So if you meet those requirements, in my eyes, you are South African.
Okay, simple and straightforward. Luyolo, what's your take?
Hectic. As South African, just someone who has a link to South African land, someone who has cultural connection and ethnic correlation with South African or South African in general.
Awesome definitions. And with that, having cleared that in a general perspective, Now let's boil it down to the Miss SA 2024 beauty pageant. We're contextualizing now the arguments that we're having because it is what kind of like instigated those questions of who we are, what we are. And I'd like to begin from the criterias, the qualifying criterias of being a beauty pageant for Miss SA. Thabo, I'd like to bring you in on this. Take me through what you understand by their process.
I think there are quite two requirements that need to be met in order to be in the running for Miss South Africa. You need to be a citizen and you need to identify as a South African. Yeah. Those are the two requirements. I think the citizenship one is quite clear-cut. You know, it's a legal question. You understand there are 4 ways of which one can acquire citizenship in South Africa. As my learning colleague was saying over here, it can happen through descent, it can happen through naturalization, it can happen through birth. But what we also don't know is that the Minister of Home Affairs, in fact, can give you special citizenship in South Africa, and that could be based on your special talents, your critical skills, you know, and whether we are in need of those or not. You understand? So, and I also think how we need to understand this position of what the Great South African or what the Miss South Africa requirements are. It needs to be positioned in line with the Miss Universe requirements, because remember, South Africa is no longer aligned with Miss World. So Miss Universe, like Miss South Africa, we've seen for the past 2 years is calling for diversity, is calling for inclusion, you understand, producing the most beautiful women in the world. We've seen it with Zosi, you understand. So I think we need to understand the Miss South African vision together with the Miss Universe vision, which is confidently beautiful. And this is the competition for being the most beautiful woman in the world.
Beauty at the epicenter. Rowan, what's your understanding of this process?
Okay, so in my understanding of the process, I'd say that according to the values that are put by the Miss South Africa organization, I agree with Thabo that they specifically looking at inclusion and diversity, right? That's why they take in people from different backgrounds, people from different people with different sexual orientations, people from people who look different from us, people who, as long as you are the embodiment or the ambassador, this is what they are training you for, to be the ambassador of South Africa. It doesn't matter necessarily about your heritage and where you come from, but can you embody the South African the South Africanness? You understand? That's what I'd like.
That's how you understand it. And I'd like to firstly acknowledge we do have a crowned, is it a queen? A crowned Miss SA?
Yes.
Yes. Big shout out to Maya Leroux, because she made it to the final. And speaking of heritage and complexities that have came and everything that was stimulated by this, we do have a winner at the end. And I just want to, now the winner, we saw it through media representations. We saw, and kind of like more attention in a journalistic sense or in a media sense, after the, maybe let's say, the Chidima incident, you know, that's when we got to get more coverage. But before then, I'm speaking to you guys now, which is Nyasha and Luyolo. What then now does the media, in terms of giving us the entire full process? We're speaking about the process, the vetting process, the requirements, but we only got to hear more in the media now when there was an incident that made it blow up. So I just want to locate the role of journalism to continue informing. Should it also only begin when there's a problem, or they just see it through and clap for when accolades are really required? So I need you to take me through the involvement of journalists and disseminating information. Nyasha, I'll start with you.
Thank you. So in this whole situation, I feel that the media played a role in having to report on this objectively. This is a big matter, you know, it's a matter of, well, one would say xenophobia, one would say Afrophobia, but it is a matter in which I feel that the media that had an influence in the way it's snowballed.
Okay.
In the sense that it had to be, well, not it had to be, but then the media made it their mission to put it out there.
Okay.
I mean, that's how the investigation was eventually conducted. And in certain situations like this, it is the role of the media to inform the individuals of what's happening in the country. It's not just a matter of keeping quiet and hoping that, you know, things will sort themselves out. No, it's a process of having to start a conversation on certain aspects or certain things that are troubling the country.
Well, Luyolo, Nyasha brought up an important point for me that I would also wish to get like your input on it. To be like, not what he said, but how I took it is like the media played a pivotal role in all this surfacing and people knowing, the Minister of Sports and Arts and Culture, Gates and other public figures, when they were speaking in conferences, they would say they didn't even know much about the information. Only the journalists were asking. It's like when Fikile Mbalula was delivering a speech, they asked him, what do you make of this incident at Miss SA? He was like, what are the facts? So it's like the media brought it to attention of these public figures. So do you also share the same view that the media did play a pivotal role in all that unveiled in this process?
Most definitely, because I believe the situation happened by accident, out of curiosity, because all that happened was the announcement of the top 10, top 15 contestants for Miss SA. People saw Chidima's surname, be like, her surname doesn't reflect South African. There was curiosity, there was discussions, like if you have Nigerian origins, should you be a contestant? Then sparked debates and it sparked anger. Like, no, how can you let a Nigerian enter in Miss South Africa? And such discourse in the media turned into petitions. Such petitions caught the attention of figures like Minister Gates and Mackenzie, and that led to another. So media has a very powerful role in shedding light and sparking discourses of many situations. So yes.
And indeed. Thabo, you spoke on, in your question that was answering my question, you noted that identity plays a pivotal role. In Chidima's case, now let's contextualize what is a South African, probably answer some of the questions that you gave us as answers.
I think, in fact, to just respond to what the panel said, I find Minister Mackenzie's public statement and his use of his public power to be very irrational, you understand, for someone in public office expected to uphold the Constitution, despite the fact that as a politician, as a president of his Patriotic Alliance, they're anti-immigrants. I think his position in this was quite very callous. I think he needed to do investigation into the matter before calling this matter funny, you understand, because in fact, this is a real crisis. So I just find there was a misuse of his public power, It incited xenophobia, it incited Afrophobia, because of, again, he did not know the facts. Then perhaps he should have refrained from even commenting on the matter, you understand, and letting due diligence do its course. Because unfortunately, I don't think there's any place in this country for Afrophobic and xenophobic rhetoric, especially considering where we come from from an Ubuntu perspective as Africans. We need to remember what countries such as Nigeria, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Tanzania did for us when our freedom forefathers had to go into exile. So what if it can even be argued that Chidima's mother is someone that had to leave South Africa because of exile and had to come back then later after exile? So is it now that when South Africans have their freedom, ignorance becomes bliss? We now forget about where we come from, and we choose to, or we rather choose to become ignorant of this shared Ubuntu that we should be living up to.
True. Keywords that I liked is Ubuntu, which I will throw to Rowan. But before that, I think articulation is quite important, especially as a public figure in positions that represent society. So how you say your words, of course, it is put into question. Although, same time, the same minister did mention that he would apologize if he offended anyone, which in a sense, right, there was accountability on his end and also acknowledging that he stands to be wrong at this point. So it's a hearsay how you took it. Of course, as a person in certain spaces, you need to be factual about what you're saying and be mindful of your words, as it may incite a lot of the stuff that you're mentioning, Thabo. But Ubuntu, as you're saying, we are all one. Umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu. What do you make of that, Rowan?
Okay, first I'll throw a joke out there, because if we contextualize what has happened here, I feel like if it is true, if the rumors are true, we have ourselves in a situation where the mother took Ubuntu in the literal sense, basically making herself a person through a person. But that's a chat for another day. So in terms of Ubuntu, right? I feel like Ubuntu just highlights the values of our constitution, which is togetherness, and the values of our people. You understand? And one of the values of our constitution is inclusivity and diversity. You understand? So in that sense, I'm saying that there is Ubuntu in letting somebody who is not entirely South African, but is legally a South African, to run in the Miss SA pageant. I say this because if they are legally here, there's nothing stopping them basically from running. You understand? Remember, we said the pageant looks at diversity, cultural differences, and everything. So they want somebody to represent South African women, but from different perspectives, different angles. You understand? That's something we have to understand. So, but then, like, now it becomes a question of, like, in that spectrum of handling this thing with Ubuntu, are we also neglecting what has happened here in this situation? You understand? Do we let Ubuntu come in and nullify what has taken place in terms of our question our topic at hand, which is Ms. Chidima being a South African citizen?
Powerful point. I like, okay, the joke killed me. I think you took me off my serious face at that point. Luyolo, well, sticking on public figures, right? Their role in all this, and in most cases, public figures address us in such matters in public eye, which is like through journalistic means, through media representation. They get in coverage. You can call a conference now, they get that. But now, you as a journalist asking all the questions, right? What do you make of the conduct that has been seen through our officials in their comments on the specific matter?
In terms of like politicians, I feel how they conduct themselves was unprofessional, because given our history with xenophobia, anything that you can say could just spark a riot, spark violence. It was not wrong of Gaten to investigate the matter because the people are curious. However, there's certain steps that need to be done, even though it's not set in black and white. It's something that, okay, I see my people are concerned with something. Let me go see, let me file a complaint. It's only last week a complaint was filed, but this thing's been happening for about a month. So that thing of urgency wasn't there. And it's a matter of understanding what needs to be done. Even when you get to celebrities, as much as you are not an ambassador or like you're not an MP and stuff, your voice matters. And whatever you say, you will hold much more value to an average Joe. So it's a thing of we need to learn how or what to say at the right time, especially when you have such media presence.
Indeed. And Nyasha, I want to bring that to you, but with a little bit wider scope now. It is, of course, we spoke of conferences, we spoke of public eyes, but however, this matter also went to social media platforms, which also at some point, people refer to certain articles, certain newspapers. What did you make of how the social media handled this type of matter that we were talking about today?
Well, one of the advantages and disadvantages of social media is that it's accessible by everyone, every Tom, Dick, and Harry. And it's a platform in which opinions can be put out there easily. So it's really unfortunate that, from what I saw, be it on Twitter, be it on Facebook, on Instagram, there's been a lot of hate toward, not hate per se, but let's just use that word, towards Chidima in this situation, in which I feel that they are diverting from the actual problem itself and concentrating it on Chidima as Miss SA for some reason. I feel that social media, like I previously stated, that it really snowballed this entire thing. When she released a statement saying that she is withdrawing from Miss SA, you would come across comments saying, "Oh no, yeah, finally, long overdue," and all of that. And those are comments that, they highlight the fact that, well, in such a situation, I don't know, you drop back to questioning the person who might be a victim here, and it's just really unfortunate that social media really has this impact on the individual, because no one is really asking how is Chidima feeling about this, how is it affecting her as an individual, she's going through an identity crisis, maybe she didn't even know about this entire situation. So yeah,
oh, that's a very valid point. Thabo, also want to get your view in terms of, I don't know if you can maybe link it to law. I'm not cornering you, but cyberbullying, it is a crime, right?
Right, absolutely. I think, even standing here today and advocating for Ubuntu, which our beautiful former Justice Mokoro, was a beautiful voice and in fact, a leading voice in South African case law when it comes to anchoring Ubuntu. She talks to us about solidarity. She talks about humaneness. She talks to us about kindness. And I think I just want to send this message out to the public that dignity knows no nationality. I think what the public has done has severely infringed on Chidima's right to human dignity. It has severely infringed on Chidima's right to privacy. The right to freedom of expression is limited, and it cannot be balanced against the right to human dignity, nor the right to privacy, you understand. The people owe her a huge hug of Ubuntu,
Okay.
No, I don't want to lie. It's really damning. And also when we just follow like rule utilitarianism, unfortunately we cannot achieve maximum utility whilst also infringing on the rights of the minorities. It cannot be possible. In order for us to have maximum utility, we need not infringe on other people's fundamental rights. The best approach is when everyone's fundamental rights are taken into consideration.
Yeah, well, that's something that I need clarity from before we move to the second part, which is educate me here, right? I need to understand, because I feel like with cyberbullying at some point, it's as if lines have been blurred to the public in terms of freedom of speech and now cyberbullying a person. People think they're saying their views, They're saying that we're also being offended, Zarina would feel like we're taking a certain side, but we're sharing our opinions. But however, who's willing to educate me on this aspect now, to be like, where then do we draw the line between freedom of speech and now that you're attacking a person, you're bullying, especially on the internet? I feel like people tend to overspeak and overshare things that may be infringing other person's rights. Who's willing to take it?
I think this absolutely is cyberbullying. In fact, in the very worst form, you understand, this is xenophobia. In fact, let's not even reduce it to cyberbullying. This is xenophobia. It was inciting xenophobia. It was inciting Afrophobia. And, on those very bases, it was very violent, vile. Taking away from a human dignity, treating her as a worthless human being, you understand. That is very wrong, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, like I did mention, we all have the right to freedom of expression, but however, it comes with the responsibility to make sure that your words don't hurt the next person, you understand. And we all need, even big corporations have that responsibility. Media has that responsibility, you understand. So why can't ordinary South Africans appreciate that although I have this right to freedom of expression, I must also consider that the next person also has the right to human dignity, good name, so on and so forth.
Wow. Nyasha wanted to add?
Adding on to Tabo's point, I feel like in this case with Chidima, if we separate the timelines, then the first timeline involves her as a South African citizen, entering Miss SA. And the whole reason this happened is because people saw her and saw her name and said, no, it seems like you're not from South Africa. And that's where this freedom of speech and cyberbullying plays a part, because in that case, in that sense, in that timeline, people were bashing her for entering a competition in which she's not representing the people of South Africa. It's a matter of what are you saying that is not discriminating an individual who has the right to be there if we're using that specific timeline. In this timeline, you know, the whole accusation of a mother stealing identity, you would say now that's when the freedom of expression is being exercised. However, in that case, it's still very sketchy because people are still bashing her continuously and saying that no, go back to where you came from or whatnot, and yeah.
Yeah, well, as you're saying, this comes after, of course, the investigations that have occurred, and the South African Home Affairs has findings at this point. It's still under investigation, but there's something on the table that they've reported on. Which, Rowan, I would like you to take me through that citizenship and the Home Affairs. What is happening there now?
Okay, so with everything that has happened so far, I think one of the most interesting is to highlight here is basically like Home Affairs and the processes that are done at Home Affairs and the corruption therein, you understand? Because this is a classic example of where, if proven to be true, we might have a situation where, just like we were discussing corruption, we have a situation where our Home Affairs Department is found to be corrupt in multiple ways. There's a lot of ways. There's a lot of news out there that have been founded that there's things happening in that department, and I think Thabo will touch furthermore about the input, the human input into that, and I want to touch into the fact that this, in a way, doesn't justify what South Africans were saying. You understand, in a way, all the xenophobic comments, the Afrophobic comments, and all that. It doesn't justify that. You understand, but we also need to understand the frustration of the people. You understand. Yeah. We have instances where right now, for example, this person whose identity has been allegedly stolen. Yeah. You understand? It creates that frustration that our departments are illegal. They're giving our identities to other people, you understand, and those people are using them to flourish, while ourselves, we are not flourishing. If we look at the labor laws aspect of it, you understand, we know that there's been a lot of outcry where people are saying foreign nationals are stealing their jobs, and that's not how it actually works, you understand. We need to understand it from this point of view, you understand. If you are here legally then you have the right to be working here. You understand? You can work in anywhere where they will hire you. You can work in that department. You understand? The only problem I feel like that frustrates South Africans is when it comes now to illegal immigrants taking jobs, for example, at a construction site. You understand? Where the employer decides, okay, I'm going to pay you 3,000. I don't have to worry about UIF. I don't have to worry about pension funds. I don't have to worry about 123, 123, 123, all this and that, because you're not a South African. And as desperate as they are, they take it because they need the money, you understand? We understand that part. They take it. But then I feel like it's taking away from South Africans, you understand, in a way that if for example, John, who's sitting at home, he's old, but he's an excellent bricklayer. He's built a lot of houses in the township, you understand? A lot of people's houses are built by this guy. Shouldn't he be going to that company where he can, because he's legally here, he's a South African citizen, shouldn't he be the one going to that company and saying, okay, I want this job, and they give it to him with all the benefits that he's supposed to get? So we have a problem where people are cutting costs, you understand? Companies are cutting costs at the expense of the people, you understand, in a way. And then also, I'd like to move on also to the citizenship thing right now. So, as we've already highlighted, for one to be a citizen in this country, you have to, it's by birth, by descent, by naturalization, and as Thabo highlighted, the minister can actually give you citizenship to basically acknowledge your role, role, creativity, and all that to represent the country, and that's fine. But then now, if we look at the citizenship the Citizenship Amendment Act of 2010, right? It states that to obtain South African citizenship by birth, right, you need to have been born in the country, right? By South African, one of your parents being South African. That's how you will qualify for it, you understand? And then by descent, there's by descent and there's by naturalization, which we can discuss on another day. But then we found a lot of people trying to qualify her with Section Section 2, subsection 2, paragraph A and B, not realizing that those paragraphs specifically state that if they specifically state that you have a right, if you have a right to citizenship in another country, you understand, then you are not entitled to get citizenship here. You understand? That's what that part basically says. It's an or kind of thing. It says that if you don't have citizenship of another country or right to citizenship in another country, then we can give you citizenship. But now in this instance, we're going to look at it on a broad perspective, you understand? We'll apply, for example, the laws of Mozambique in her mother's,
Allegedly?
because allegedly that's where her mother is from. If we look at the laws of Mozambique, by descent, it is stated that you acquire the citizenship of your father if you were born abroad to a Mozambican mother but a foreign father. You understand? And that is according to the law of nationality, 1975, amended in 1990. You understand?
Of Mozambique.
Yes, of Mozambique. So what is this telling us? It's telling us that if you are born, your mother is Mozambican, you are born outside of the country, and your father is foreign, in this case, in Chidima's case, Nigerian father, you will take your father's nationality. We go and look at the laws of Nigeria now. Section 25 of their constitution, it specifically states that there should be blood lineage, you understand, whereby your parent or your grandparents are from Nigeria, and then you can apply for citizenship there.
Does it say father or mother or just a parent?
Just parent.
Okay.
Just parent or grandparent.
All right.
So basically, if we follow that trend of the laws and how they are moving, we can see that in South Africa, okay, no, not a citizen, right? Mozambican law, we are sending her to Nigeria. Nigeria accepts her. All she has to do is register, but she has the right to register there. That's what I'm trying to get across.
Interesting. Thabo, saw your blood dashing there. It's like you wanted to comment on the first part, I'm sure.
Yeah, I feel very indebted to the public to provide this perspective, right? I feel my learning colleague here, not even feel, I believe, he's confused. I think a proper contextualization of this, we need to look at the laws which existed in 2001, which is not the 20,000 Home Affairs Act, no, the Citizenship Act, which is making reference to today. It needs to be the Home Affairs Act of 1995, because of that is the one that was applicable to Chichi in 2001, right? Because we also can't apply the law retrospectively, you understand? We need to apply the law as it existed at the time when this young girl got her South African ID. Because we also need to understand that in her 23 years of staying in South Africa, she believes that she's South African. And that's because she's always had the ID. She's schooled here. She did everything in South Africa. Meaning that it is because of the 1995 Act in 2001 that we should be looking at and trying to contextualize at this point. Also, I feel also very much indebted to, again, say this to the public. I feel it's very unfair to blame foreigners for South Africa's labor laws not being in line with the International Labor Law Organization. Because in fact, my learning colleague is sitting here trying to blame the issues on foreigners, whereas actually South Africa's labor laws are actually not in line with the International Labor Law Organization. So, ladies and gentlemen, the issue is bigger. Is bigger than foreigners, right? In fact, I think South Africans are not justified in providing this opinion that they do not have access to jobs because of foreign nationals or immigrants in South Africa. I think we need, and our politicians also need to be honest with us when we come to this, right? Ladies and gentlemen and non-binary folks, we had centuries of colonialism and apartheid. Those cannot be, and at least we can see today in South Africa, those cannot be undone within 30 years of democracy. The issues are deep. The reason why black people have been excluded from the work environment, still finding it hard to be included in today's working environment, it's because of those long years of white monopoly manipulating us and making us believe that we are less than. You understand? And taking our capabilities away from us, so on and so forth. So like I'm saying, we need a proper theorization as to actually why South Africans are not having this privilege to work or are struggling with this privilege to work. A last thing that I wanted to mention is the Home Affairs issue, right? Ladies and gentlemen, I think we need to accept my lecturer in social security law, Dr. Ngube, likes to say that when it comes to any system where human input is required, we must expect issues like corruption. For example, ladies and gentlemen, I can pose this question to the panel at large. Who of you think that you guys can get a driver's license in South Africa without paying a bribe?
Okay.
No hands. Catch it.
We're still thinking.
Yeah, I don't think it's possible, ladies and gentlemen, because of unfortunately, with systems that involve human input, things like corruption can never be ousted. So what because what I'm also saying is that the Home Affairs is to blame for this, you understand? It is the young lady's mom could not have performed this by herself. It needed to be performed by administrators who were working on behalf of Home Affairs. So I suggest a way that we do away with this corruption, which is caused by human input, is a digitalization of the systems. You understand? And perhaps this issue could have also been dealt with way better. And I understand AI is a new thing. And of course, like I also just said, South Africa also being a new democracy, we cannot also blame our people, for wanting to eat and Ubuntu, Ngabantu. As my learning colleague put it here to the public today, that perhaps they did, the stakeholders which were involved in this alleged identity theft took Ubuntu literally too far.
It does really feel like a debate. It's a serious debate in conversation. Tabo, before I throw it back to my journalism colleagues here, you have a rebuttal, which is the last one.
Yes. So in terms of looking at the 1995 Act, right, we realize that Section 2, subsection 1, paragraph B says that any person who is born in the Republic on or after the commencement of this date, right, shall be by subject of this provision be a South African citizen by birth. You understand?
Okay.
And that's fine. You understand? I understand that part. But now we also need to remember that it also had a limiting provision, just like we have right now. It might have not phrased it the same way we did in the 2010 Act, but it does have that limiting provision in terms of Section 2, subsection 2, paragraph B, which basically says that no person shall be a South African citizen by virtue of 1B, right, which I stated that you have to be born in South Africa. It says you can't be if that person the person's parents have not been lawfully admitted or to the Republic as permanent residents therein. You understand? So what do we get from this? If it is proven that Chidima's mother committed or was helped to commit this identity theft, you understand? At the end of the day, this does still affect Chidima's credibility to be a South African citizen, you understand?
Yeah.
Because this is limiting, as it says, if it's found that you were not lawfully admitted, you understand? And this is what we are chasing. And some might chase the naturalization aspect of it. But if we are chasing the naturalization aspect of it, you have to look at it from this sense also, that naturalization by that time had to be invoked. So it should have been invoked when she was born. You understand?
Yeah.
All those processes she should have applied to have acquired a citizenship by naturalization through all those processes. But now, if she's going to apply now, she's going to have to apply with the new act. You understand? She's not going to apply with the old act because what? It has been amended to this new one. That's what we have to understand.
Very complex, very complex. And I would like to now bring you guys in. Luyolo, with you, right? It's post Miss SA 2024, the beauty pageant itself, but the talks remain. You, as a journalist or as an aspiring journalist, what are some of the burning questions that you would seek answers for? What are you questioning now?
First of all, to ask yourselves, my question would be, okay, there's possible identity theft. Where is this person now?
Okay.
How has this person been functioning?
Okay.
How did this happen? What were the processes? And what needs to be done to prevent such situations? And also, what happens to Chidima? Obviously, they give a law aspect, but what happens to the next person that is in identity crisis of, okay, they have this ID, but then it's not really valid. What happens then? Because, yes, legally so, if we're looking from a broad perspective, she would be claimed by Nigeria. But then again, you have to ask yourselves, would she be accepted as Nigerian?
Okay.
Because, excuse me, she's been here for 23 years.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if she's ever been to Nigeria. Can she really speak the language, like to that particular dialect? Can she be able to fit in with the people?
Okay.
So those type of questions we need to ask ourselves, like what are we doing? What is the aim? What is our end goal?
Okay. I'll come back to you, Rowan. Nyasha, with you as well, similar. What are the burning questions that you have? And of course, Luyole cited in terms of accountability and popping these loopholes that are in the system, but also being considerate in a humanitarian type of approach. You say this is still a person that has experienced a culture in a different country. Now you are being told you are not of that country. And what are your burning questions? Where are you right now as an aspiring journalist?
I feel like I'm going to take this back to your first question that you asked us when you asked us, what does it mean to be South African?
Yeah.
I feel that now you have to, go to Miss South Africa and in general just see what the brand itself represents in terms of the ambassadorship, right? From what I understand, it's taking the values of South Africa and putting them on international stage, right? So now you have to ask the question that, does just being of blood mean that you automatically inherit the values? Or does it mean that you have to have lived in a country, have experienced the different cultures, experienced all, the diverse nature, the rainbow nation itself, and take it on an international stage? I would also ask that, what is being done to amend this so that similar situations don't happen? Who's, like Leon stated, the accountability factor? Who are we talking to? Like, where's the conversation that is being had to make sure that there aren't similar cases like this that will happen in the future? Because I'm sure there are a bunch of cases that we don't know about that have occurred. Maybe just not on a high level, as Ms. S. Maybe just underlying things. So I think those are the questions
that you have. And Taba cannot jump you on this one because he touches also on utilitarianism. Got that word from you. You spoke about it earlier. How does it apply in this case, and what is happening now post the pageant?
I think the position still stands, ladies and gentlemen. In order for utilitarianism to have its reign over us, the most seamless way it can happen is if it also considers others' fundamental rights. You understand? And I think what is very important, in fact, to respond to what both Luyolo and Nyasha have said, I think it's very important that we have legal certainty around this matter. Because I don't only think that this is significant for the next girl who's going to be running for Miss South Africa, but I also think that such discourse could also come in for any other competition too. You understand? We have Mr. South Africa too. We have other beauty pageants too. We have Abu Miss Heritage, Miss South Africa, you understand? So I think it's very important that we really answer this question. What does being South African mean to us, to a nation, especially since our voices are so important in this conversation? Secondly, I think I'm very indebted now to provide this perspective, especially after Luyolo provided us with this argument, you understand? Because what if then she goes to Nigeria and then Nigeria says to her, you have to prove our citizenship. You have to prove your citizenship to us, you understand? You have to prove to us that you are real Nigerian, you understand? Which I think, ladies and gentlemen, this can be likened to the situation of former President Barack Obama in the US when he was contesting against former President Donald Trump. And Donald Trump asked former President Barack Obama to, in fact, prove his American citizenship because, he was saying that he's African, you understand? The same thing goes for Trevor Noah, you understand? When Trevor Noah became this internationally acclaimed comedian and celebrated with his Swiss origins, we were so happy to celebrate with him as African people, forgetting that as African people would normally take the father's side as actually what's your origin or who you actually are. So this is also, I think, an issue which we need to look at. What does it mean to be South African in this context? Ladies and gentlemen, and I also think we need to shy away from labeling South Africans as xenophobic or Afrophobic. Former Miss South Africa judge, Prof. Thuli Madonsela, says this is an issue of creeping nationalism. Now, let me tell you what creeping nationalism is. Creeping nationalism is the gradual and subtle spread of nationalist ideologies and sentiments in a political system, and this can happen through the four following ways. It can happen through political entrepreneurship, which preys on the public. It can happen through policy changes or law, which prioritizes national interests over international cooperation and minority rights. It can also happen in the form of influencing institutions of learning, media, and the state to manifest extreme nationalist views. And ladies and gentlemen, this is dangerous because of this can breed social unrest. This can minimize minority rights. This leads to discrimination. This leads to xenophobia. And I think this is the issue that we are sitting with today. Creeping nationalism.
Creeping nationalism is the word. Hope you got that. I learned.
It's a big one.
Yeah, it's a big one. It is. You cannot miss that one. But yeah, we're heading towards the end of our episode. I would like to get final comments from everyone, but I'd like Luyolo for you to start incorporating. I think the question that you had in regards to Tabo's comment.
Wasn't much of, but it's a bit of a contribution to his argument. He mentioned national interests.
Okay.
Now, this Miss South Africa situation is bigger. It's dealing with illegal immigration, identity politics, and national interest of the people.
Okay.
Now, it's going to be a problem when, as South Africans, we are heading or trying to adhere to the Agenda 2063. The Agenda 2063 is basically a framework that aims to put South Africa, or Africa in general, to a global monster powerhouse economically. So, and after that, with that, you need to adhere to certain international laws. And obviously, international laws is quite different to other laws because you doesn't have an obligatory nature of it. So now we're conflicting between international law and national interest. Does international law care for the interest of South Africans as a people to accept someone who they believe is not really South African? Whereas in the Agenda 2063, one of the main things is about free trade movement, one visa for free movement and all that stuff. Does the situation or the national interest of the country conflict on what is the aim of where we want to take Africa? Because yes, it is good to identify as a South African, to put South African first, but to a certain extent, we have the freedom to express, okay, does she have the proper paperwork to be here? However, as they mentioned, rights have responsibilities. And where you draw the line is when you're promoting hate speech. And unfortunately, in social media, they refuse to, or they neglect detecting which is which. And even misinformation, because people think just because you can access Twitter, now they're journalists. Now we're promoting, no, she was a drug dealer, mother was a mule goat and all that stuff. Like, where do you get this information? Now that becomes a problem of dealing with the main problem, national or illegal immigration. How are we going to solve it? It doesn't help, or it's not going to solve it if we kick Chidima out. And jobs, like, how do we solve the jobs being taken, which is not, because jobs, there was a decision was made to say, okay, Tafatso from Zim with no paperwork, come work here, because they know you can exploit. Mostly in the private department, because how many situations have you heard from the government institution where someone doesn't have the correct paperwork? It's normally from the private sector, where the aim is maximize profits.
Maximize profit.
So now we need to actually look at the main source and not just use people as a scapegoat when it's deemed necessary. Because it's only convenient for people to have foreign nationals when it's time to have social workers or domestic workers go cut your hair. But now, no, they're taking our jobs. No. So we need to be very consistent with that.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Luyolo. Rowan, your final thoughts?
Yes, so speaking more on what my colleague here has said in terms of accountability also, that was mentioned previously. I feel like as private institutions, as he said, are the ones that should be taking accountability for some of the things that are happening also, right? In terms of the jobs, the fact that they are taking illegal immigrants and paying them less, they should be accountable to that. Now, I'm also holding Ms. Essay and their vetting process to the accountability of this, you understand? Because in 2020, the CEO of Ms. Essay was asked, and she stated that they have governance in place, you understand, that investigates things like this. Not things like this necessarily, but investigates if contestants, basically finalists and semi-finalists, comply, you understand, with their values, with one of their values being that you're supposed to be a South African citizen. I feel like them just viewing somebody's ID and deciding that, okay, you are South African, it has to go deeper than that, you understand? And this is not directly for Chidima alone. I'm talking about everyone. It has to go way deeper than that, than just looking at your ID. If the governance is in place, due diligence must be done to make sure that we vet the people properly and we can 100% claim that they are South African. Then we let them into the competition.
Thank you so much for that, Rowan. Of course, I think that also speaks to the resources. You know, when the Deputy Minister of the Home Affairs gave out his speech, he did mention that in this case they're gonna release every resource that they have, meaning that this is the last stride. It's an extra mile that they're going for. So there is lack of resources, but however, there's still a lot that they can do with the minimal resources that they have. Tabo, I'd like to bring you in on this.
Right, especially just on your point of resources, right? Because remember, Ms. SA is a private organization, ladies and gentlemen. It does not have the amount of resources of which our public state does. So my resolution to this would be that Miss South Africa must work together with the South African government, the Home Affairs Department, to investigate, because South Africa does not have the capacity to investigate such issues, right? We should know that by now. South Africa does not have the capacity to investigate such issues. So what I present as a solution for the future is that South Africa must work very closely with the Home Affairs Department for the vetting of the contestants, you understand, so that we don't have such issues anymore. And then I think just on my last thoughts, I would like to say I think there is still an opportunity for the South African government to send a strong message to the international global environment as well as to South Africans too. A message about Ubuntu. A message about how we deal with such matters. A message about solidarity, you understand. A proper exercise of public power too, you understand. So I think those are very paramount conversations that we need to have in South Africa. And I just want to wish a beautiful Women's Month to every strong woman out there. Wimbokoto doll.
Wimbokoto indeed. Nyasha, final remarks?
Thank you very much, Mangani. I think my final remark would be a question that I would pose to South Africa as a whole, in which I would ask, is one person's success a country's success, or is a one person's success another country's success? In the sense that if Chidima were to win Miss South Africa, would South Africa be, celebrating it as a South African win, or would they feel that she stole the identity of the South African child who was supposed to, handle that crown? Basically, I feel like there needs to be more consistency in terms of, vetting or calling out the people who are, involved in the actual illegal processes of this, and just to make sure that in future there is more, how can I say it, more clarification to prevent
such things from happening again.
Overspilling.
Well, thank you so much, guys, for joining me for this amazing conversation. It was finally a conversation instead of more debate. We're not on each other's faces, but you brought the A game in terms of sharing your inputs or your views in terms of what's happening in the country. And as aspiring journalists and legal practitioners, you are in the right way. It would be very wrong of me, and my mom would be mad if I'm not to say Happy Women's Month to every woman out there. And thank you for tuning into this episode. My name is Bongani Mncube. See you in the next episode.